Good morning, everyone. Can I take this opportunity to welcome all of you to this meeting of the committee, the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, and I wish to thank you all in advance for your attendance, and also thank you all for the submissions you have provided in response to the questions circulated by the Secretary of the Committee. Those responses have been quite helpful. And we wish to thank you and your staff and all those who would have contributed to the preparation of those responses on a timely basis. They've been of immense assistance to us in formulating the further elucidation of the questions that we may wish to propose, the members of this committee may wish to propose. With us this morning, and we are live on the Parliament channel, with us this morning are officials from the Ministry of Finance, the Chemistry, Food and Drug Division of the Ministry of Health. From the Ministry of Health also, we have the Health Policy Planning and Research Department. We're very grateful to have in attendance also the Office of Procurement Regulation, representatives of the Pharmacy Board who would have taken a lot of time and made a lot of effort from their busy private practice to attend here. We are very grateful to you. Fair Trading Commission, I see for want of a better term, the Executive Director is here. I could want to address him by his proper title. The Customs and Excise Division of the Ministry of Finance is also here. And a somewhat new entity, but a necessary one, the Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association. Some of the executive members are here. And also very grateful to the Export-Import Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, who will seek to clarify and provide some useful assistance to us, in which I think we all agreed is a pivotal cog in the entire machinery of the pharmaceutical industry and the importation and distribution of pharmaceuticals. So we're very grateful. Let me at once, at the outset, record my immense gratitude to all of you for taking your time to attend here. Some of you may or may not be aware, I'm sure that this is not many of you who I would have seen here. I'm sure this is, as the Americans say, not your first rodeo. So just for the benefit of those who have not attended before, the Committee on Public Administration and Appropriation has the mandate to consider and report to the House in pursuance of our duty of parliamentary accountability, the executive to account to the people through the principle of parliamentary accountability. A, the budgetary expenditure of government agencies to ensure that expenditure is embarked upon in accordance with parliamentary approval. B, I beg your pardon, the budgetary expenditure of government agencies as it occurs and keeps Parliament informed of how the budget allocation is being implemented. And C, the administration of government agencies to determine hindrances to their efficiency and to make recommendations to the government for improvement of public administration. The purpose of this meeting is to conduct an inquiry into the state's acquisition of pharmaceuticals as it relates, but not limited to, the current processes applicable to its importation and, most importantly, approval. The role of the committee is to assist the stakeholders in achieving the efficient delivery of services whilst ensuring that the expenditure is embarked upon in accordance with parliamentary approval. It's also to determine the challenges being faced and the possible solution to these challenges, and C, to make recommendations for the improvement of public administration. I'm sure we all agree that the pharmaceutical industry pharmaceuticals targets one of the most vulnerable sectors of society that normally deal with the aged and the infirm. So I think the work of this committee in this regard is extremely important. I see a lot of nodding heads there, so I take it that you all are largely in agreement with me. I'm also advised that this meeting is being held in public and is being broadcast live on Parliament's Channel 11 and Radio 105.5 FM and on the Parliament's YouTube channel. Viewers and listeners can send their comments related to today's topic via email parl101@ttparliament.org and on Facebook at ttparliament, on X at ttparliament. So can I, for the sake of completeness, ask all the members of the committee to introduce themselves? I think I should start first. I am the chairman of the committee, Jagdev Singh, and I hold this chairmanship by ex officio as Speaker of the House of Representatives. So if we could go to the right, and then we come around.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Janelle John Bates. I'm a senator. Oh, sorry. Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Janelle John Bates, and I'm a senator. It was on.
Hi, morning. I'm Prakash Prasad, a government senator.
Good morning, Jillian John, member of the committee.
Now and asks.
Good morning, everyone. Roger Alexander, Member of Parliament.
And Minister of Homeland
Minister
Security.
of Homeland Security.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Senator Dr. Marlene Atz, an independent senator and member of this committee.
Can I now ask the representatives of the Ministry of Finance to please introduce yourselves?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Vashti Maraj, Acting Permanent Secretary.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chintamani Suku, Acting Director, Economic Research and Policy Coordination.
Okay. The representatives of the Chemistry, Food and Drug Division, Ministry of Health. Can I ask the representatives if there are any present this morning to introduce themselves?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chair. Mohammed-Ali, Acting Chief Chemist and Director of Chemistry, Food and Drugs.
Are you alone, Mr. Ali, or you have other officials?
I am here as part of the contingent of the Ministry of Health because the Chemistry, Food and Drugs Division falls under the Ministry of Health.
Yes. All right. And I think we've already had the introduction from Health Policy Planning and Research. Am I correct? Ms. Suku? Finance. Okay. Health Policy Planning and Research, Ministry of Health.
Thank you, Chair. So it's the Ministry of Health, Permanent Secretary Asif Ali. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Janine St. Bernard, Acting Chief Medical Officer, Ministry of Health.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chair. I'm Anissa Doodnath-Siboo, Principal Pharmacist, Ministry of Health.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair. I'm Kimberly Ramlochan, State Counsel to Ministry of Health.
Okay. Can I, Office of Procurement Regulation.
Good morning, Chair. I am Beverly Khan, Procurement Regulator and Chairman of the Procurement Board.
Thank you. Fair Trading Commission.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I am Bevan Narang Singh, Executive Director of the Fair Trading Commission, and I am here with two of my colleagues who can introduce themselves now.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Farisha Mohammed-Ali, Secretary to the Board of Commissions, Fair Trading Commission.
Good morning, everyone. Morning, Chair. I am Kezia Calbio, Investigator, Fair Trading Commission.
Thank you very much. And can I ask the officials of the Customs and Excise Division, Ministry of Finance, to identify and introduce yourselves?
Good morning, Chair. My name is Riyad Juman, Acting Comptroller of Customs, and I'm here with one of my executives who will introduce herself.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I am Savitri Ramjat, Deputy Controller, Operations, Customs and Excise.
Thank you very much. And the Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association.
Morning, Chair. Glenwayne Suchet, President of the Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association. We have two other members here who will introduce themselves.
Thank you.
Anil Maharaj, PRO of the Private Pharmacy Retail Association.
Morning, Chair and everyone. My name is Steve Lachman Lalchan, and I'm an executive member of the Pharmacy Retailers Association. Thank you.
Can I invite the representatives of the Export-Import Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, Exim Bank, which will refer to it by its truncated name, moving henceforth Exim Bank, to introduce themselves?
Sure. Good morning, Chair. My name is Navin Dukran, Chief Executive Officer of the Exim Bank.
Thank you very much. And you are alone today in attendance, Mr. Dukaran?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, for the convenience of carrying forward these hearings, I'm sorry, Mr. Mohammed, I did not call upon you. Can I ask you to identify
Sure.
which entity you represent?
Good morning, everyone. Members of the panel. Ricardo Mohammed, President of the Pharmacy Board of Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm here with one council member who will introduce himself.
Hi, morning, Chair. Quintin Dyer, Council Member of Pharmacy Board. Thank you.
Yes, my apologies. I don't know how I skipped over that one, but my apologies, my sincere apologies. Now, as I was saying, I think it's important to add some structure to these hearings, that we do it in a somewhat systematic manner rather than an ad hoc scattered approach. So because the Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association is more than likely, if you want to put a somewhat popular name to them, we could conveniently describe them as the first responders in the healthcare system, because as we know, most people go to their pharmacists sometimes before they go to their doctors. So this being such a critical issue and the retail pharmacies playing such a critical role in the entire dissemination of pharmaceuticals and the peculiar market knowledge that the pharmaceutical retailers would possess over and above those who may perhaps occupy a more bird's eye view of the industry, I think it might be convenient, subject to any major inconvenience of any other party, that if we could accommodate the Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association first, I'd be very grateful, subject to non-objection, reasonable non-objection, I should say. So, sorry, I beg your pardon. If it is agreed, I Okay. Okay. Right, so that would apply insofar as calling the persons to give their presentations. I am advised by those who have occupied these offices far longer than I have and are far more familiar with the procedure and processes that govern these meetings in ways that I could perhaps never begin to comprehend. So my secretary has advised me that we normally ask for a brief opening statement. So I will invite the Permanent Secretary, Acting Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Finance, to make a brief opening statement at this time. Permanent Secretary.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. The Ministry of Finance is responsible for executing the policies as prescribed by Cabinet. Accordingly, the mandate of the division includes oversight and monitoring when necessary. Additionally, within the Ministry, the Investment Division acts on behalf of the Minister of Finance, Corporation Sole, and carries out the corporate function. We look forward to today's discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, good morning to yourself, members of the committee, my colleagues, and the viewing and listening public. With regard to the procurement of pharmaceuticals for the public health system, this is done for the Ministry of Health by NIBDEC, which is also responsible for the storage and distribution of these items. The Chemistry, Food and Drugs Division of the Ministry of Health has a regulatory role to ensure the quality and safety of pharmaceuticals used in both the public and private sector. This is done through both a pre-market evaluation process, which comprises drug registration or approval, as well as post-approval monitoring of drugs being imported and sold nationally. The other regulatory arm of the Ministry of Health is the Drug Inspectorate Unit, which monitors the entry, sale, and distribution of antibiotics and narcotics into the country, as well as issuing licensing and import permits for antibiotics and narcotics. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I invite the Acting Comptroller of Customs and Excise to make a brief opening statement?
Good morning once again, Chair. Good morning, panel. The primary functions and responsibilities of the Customs and Excise Division regarding pharmaceutical importation and regulation include the proper physical examination of cargo to ensure compliance with laws and regulations, the verification of the common external tariff, classification of same, and that correct import duties and taxes are paid, and that the goods are accurately described, and the declared quantities found.
I now invite the Chief Executive Officer of the Exim Bank to make a brief opening statement.
Thank you, Chair. The Exim Bank is pleased to contribute to this important session. The Exim Bank deals with a couple different programs to facilitate trade finance, manufacturing program, which has 196 companies on that program, and then the Essentials program, which incorporates the Pharmaceuticals, which has 123 importers on that program. The intent of the both programs are to increase national foreign exchange earnings, and in the case of the Essentials program, to ensure various essential items are brought into the country and distributed widely to the public via many retail distribution channels and locations. This contributes to the health of our nation.
Thank you very much. Can I now invite the representative of the Chemistry, Food and Drug Division of the Ministry of Health to make a brief opening statement?
Thank you, Chair. I would first like to be guided by the statement made by my Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health.
Thank you. Right. Can we invite the Procurement Regulator of the Office of Procurement Regulation to make a brief opening statement similarly?
Good morning again, Chair and members of the committee and the listening and viewing public. The Office of Procurement Regulation was established to oversee all public procurement activities in the country in accordance with the new Act, which was fully proclaimed in April 2023. Section 13(2)(b) of the Act stipulates that the OPR is accountable solely to the Parliament.
So this is mine?
Parliamentary scrutiny is therefore at the core of our accountability framework, and we welcome it as a necessary safeguard for the integrity of public expenditure. The OPR remains committed and stands ready to engage with and support the work of the committee. Thank you.
Can I now invite the Executive Director of the Fair Trading Commission?
Thank you, Chair.
Similarly do so.
Good morning, Chair, honourable members of the committee and the viewing public. Thank you for the invitation to appear before you today as part of the committee's important examination into the state's acquisition of pharmaceuticals and the systems that govern their importation and approval. It is a privilege to contribute to this national discussion. I am joined today by members of my team, and we stand ready to assist the committee in any way necessary. Thank you.
You very much. I now invite the President of the Pharmacy Board to make a similar brief opening statement.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. The Pharmacy Board of Trinidad and Tobago, our role focuses on the professional and ethical standards of pharmacy practice and the integrity of the pharmaceutical supply chain within Trinidad and Tobago. However, we are guided within the Pharmacy Board Act of 1962, and we operate within the confines of that Act.
Thank you. And now I invite the President of the Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association to make a brief opening statement.
Morning again, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. This is my first rodeo, so I'm very, very glad to be here and get this opportunity to have our presentation. The Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association, or PPRBA, a non-profit organization formed August 2023, roughly 2 years ago, to represent retail pharmacies, small distributors in Trinidad and Tobago. The organization today has submitted a 79-page presentation to the Public Administration and Appropriation Committee as part of its inquiry into the state's acquisition of pharmaceuticals. This presentation basically will address three primary objectives: the effectiveness of procurement systems for pharmaceuticals in public health care, the effectiveness of public health supply chain management, and of major importance, factors affecting foreign exchange allocation for pharmaceuticals. In the lead up to this request to participate in this, we have also done several similar presentations to the Ministry of Health regarding similar issues, and the Fair Trade Commission under the Ministry of Trade, Investment and Tourism along similar lines. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, now that we have all the opening statements, what I propose to do is that, as you would have heard, Mr. Suchit would have alluded to submitting a 79-page document. However, the gravamen of what is contained in the first 11 pages, the rest of which are really appendices and, if I could call it, some kind of empirical data to support their position. So I will invite Mr. Suchit to make a short presentation, a more fulsome presentation, flesh out the issues which you've just identified to us. But bear in mind we have economy of time, and then I will ask some questions and raise some issues which I think are central to the inquiry which we've assembled to conduct. I know that some of the other members of the committee will also have. So can I just invite you, Mr. Suchit, to embark on your presentation, but bear in mind to keep it crisp and short to the substance, because there are some questions I really wish to be answered in this document.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And in line with your request, I have come to this meeting fully prepared with a condensed, just a few pages that I will go through briefly and highlight in preparation for your questions and concerns. Market monopoly concerns has been a critical part of our drive over the last 2 years, because it directly influences not just it influences significantly the products that are supplied and introduced to the local market for the population. It also has a play in the pricing of these pharmaceuticals throughout the nation. And our market monopoly has identified significant market concentration in Trinidad and Tobago pharmaceutical sector. Basically, we have just a few companies that are controlling everything in terms of private procurement for retail distribution and for public. Actually, Aventa controls 74% of the pharmaceutical private market. Two companies, Aventa 34% and Bryden 50%, they control 50% of the tender market for public procurement. Aventa also owns their own retail distribution, Superfarm, M-Farm retail chain, creating a vertical integration from distributor to retail, and this is unacceptable. Between 2020 and 2025, June 2025, top Exim Bank Forex recipient was Aventa Trinidad and Tobago, US $100,184,000 US dollars. Over 59% of the national VEN list, that is public and government procurement, contracts between 2015 and 2024, a 9-year period, were awarded to two companies, previously Smith Robertson, now Aventa, and Bryden Pie. Brand name as compared to generic drugs, brand name products purchased by the government on NIPDEC tender awards account for 56%, or half of the money that we are currently spending in procuring pharmaceuticals for the population of this country. Aventa and two other dominant distributors collectively control 70% of the entire wholesale pharmaceutical market. That in itself will give you confirmation that we have a serious monopoly in this country controlled by a limited few. Unfair trading practices, and this is a spin-off from monopoly. We have independent pharmacies being routinely denied access to subsidized CDAP medications for various reasons, which I will not waste time right now. There is a consistent pattern of pricing discrimination and refusal to supply. During COVID pandemic, I'll give an example here. Aventa was supplying Redoxon ongoing, previous, ongoing, and currently. And this was vitamin C, which was important as an immune booster during COVID. Pharmacies were denied this on the grounds that the accountant at Aventa will not sell to pharmacies and take the risk of selling and not getting payment in time and sell all to Superfarm. That is unfair trading. You cannot decide to sell your own outlets and bypass the other pharmacies in this country. That is ridiculous and nonsense. Again, there's another problem we have with an app that Aventa has put up on the internet, Dolphin app, owned by the Agostini Group, which owns Aventa and owns Superfarm and owns M-Farm. They are allegedly advertising third schedule drugs, not for the usage of the product, but for a coupon to advertise for discounted prices at Superfarm and M-Farm pharmacies primarily. So we are of the opinion that they are allegedly breaking the law by advertising these third schedule drugs, not necessarily what they are used for, but by promoting it for a discount and then supplying this discount to their own chain of stores. PPRA has filed written complaints to the Ministry of Health and the Pharmacy Board in 2024. Former Minister Terence Diyal Singh, Permanent Secretary Asif Ali, CMO, at that time Dr. Roshan Parasram, CFDD Director at that time Mr. Faiz Khan, and the Principal Pharmacist Untitled-Chapter were informed of all these concerns verbally and in writing, and to date nothing has been done to address them. CDAP program issues. CDAP was established in 2003 with payment of $10 per item, reaching $13 in 2015. This was reduced with the change in government in September 2015 from $13 to $10 to $8 in a space of 3 months. Understandably, lack of finance in the country at that time. We have moved forward now more than 10 years and we are still in the same position. Pharmacies bear plenty uncompensated costs. We pay for envelopes, bags, labels, staff, and now the hardware. But the most important cost, which nobody seems to be paying attention to, is the cost of 250 pharmacists in this country doing CDAP and the benefit and savings to the public system with what we provide. That is immeasurable in dollars and cents. Nobody really takes that value into consideration. The PPRB remains committed to ensuring all 230 pharmacies nationwide maintain CDAP and work with the government in delivering proper and effective health care to the population of this country. Previous administration has refused to upgrade and replace the hardware and software of the CDAP system, additionally incurring more cost to the pharmacies having to procure this to work for the government, basically, without payments forthcoming. The PPRBA, however, has indicated to the Ministry of Health, current administration, that we are willing to continue working as we are, given the limited constraints of the Ministry of Finance in being able to pay us adequately and on time. Procurement and distribution problems. NIPDEC issues. NIPDEC generally managed the healthcare system drug supply chain since 1993 with a centralized warehouse in Shagaramas. Welcome, Mr. Tanko. Due to the location in the Western Peninsula.
Just as a pause, can I, for the record, welcome the Minister of Finance, who has been granted leave by this committee to attend and participate in these hearings.
Yes.
Welcome, Minister.
Right. I'll continue, Mr. Chair. Right. Due to the location on the Western Peninsula of the central stores of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, it is difficult to maintain consistent delivery network to all public institutions and CDAP pharmacies. While it is satisfactory, there is much room for improvement. Late deliveries after requisitions now vetted by Drug Inspectorate before being released causing further delays. We have an outdated inventory control system in the Ministry of Health. And this point I'm going to make here, I am very passionate about it. The Ministry of Health in April, May this year, reported $80 million in expired goods in central stores. I would like to say that last August it was brought to my attention in 2024 that there was about $18 million in expired goods, which was very disturbing. And I did bring this to the attention of the Minister, D.L. Singh, at the time, to which he blatantly denied that. Only 6 months later to find out wasn't 18 million, was 80 million. And that is ridiculous. This is money that should have been spent wisely to ensure medications are evenly distributed, timely distributed to the population of this country. From the period 2018 to 2025, NIPDEC and the Ministry of Health has failed to publish any listing of the tender awards. That process for public information everything has stopped. Late payments from NIPDEC is a serious concern, not just for the pharmacies in CDAP, but also for many distributors who are waiting 6 to 11 months for payments. Ministry of Health issues we move on to. No RHA personnel have been included in NDAC meetings for 7 years. Prior to 2018, the CMO would issue letters to all CEOs of the regional authority about drug tender meetings. These meetings could run for at least a week and were mandatory for all regional health authority medical personnel. Centralized approval through the Office of the Principal Pharmacist creates a bottleneck. This should be decentralized to regional pharmacy managers, coordinators. Deterrence from pharmaceutical companies, forex shortage from banks prevent small and medium companies from meeting tender requirements. We have an extremely difficult registration process. And I would like to say that the registration process in this country, every time we have these committee meetings, every time we have Ministry of Health meetings, we are always hearing that drug registration taking 3 months. But I'd like to just interject here for 1 second to give you. The submissions?
Perhaps, can I invite you to, because we have limited time, can I invite you to move along a little bit? Because that's one of the items I wish to
okay, so I'll leave the drug registration problems after.
And also to remind you the statement, because we have your evidence already, but just for the benefit of the public, we invite very short submissions.
All right.
Because I think all my committee members are chomping at the bit to get the question session going.
So,
Thank you.
Just to briefly complete, we have serious problem with drug registrations. We have some critical metrics problem where I initially talk about the thing. In the presentation, you will see a data report that we commissioned to be done, which will give you concise, accurate, and detailed information on the monopoly and unfair trading. We have a cost savings analysis recommendation here for NIPDEC and for CDAP, very detailed and outlined. We also have legal analysis and work done by our legal team and recommendations made to the Fair Trade Commission as regards what we can do to improve the monitoring, action, and consequences of monopoly and fair trade. We have legal conclusions, all of which is contained.
We have it.
This, I think, more or less, Mr. Chair, would be best summarized before I go further for us to get into the recommendations to the Ministry of Health, all of which is in our prepared document. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, I have a few questions, but I know, can I invite any of my colleagues who would have questions to clarify before I embark on my question? Senator Arts?
Hi, good morning again, and thanks, Mr. Suchet, for the very detailed submission by the Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association and for your summary of some of the issues that you've presented. As you would have been told when you were invited to present today, one of the pain points, one of the undercurrents that we're trying to address is the issue of forex allocation. And you made mention of that in your association submission. So in your summary just now, your summary statement to the committee, you mentioned expired goods to the tune of 18 million and another sort of leakage, as it were, of another couple of millions of dollars. And I just need for clarification so that we can make the connection between the forex issues that undergird this inquiry and, well, one of the issues, one of the pain points that undergird this inquiry, and your comment about expired goods. What currency, that 18 million and the other multiples of millions that you referred to, what currency are we talking about here? Is this US dollars or TT dollars?
We are talking about TT dollars.
TT dollars in terms of the expired goods.
And this was public information made by the Minister of Health in April, May this year. $80 million TT dollars in expired drugs.
All right, okay. 80 million in TT dollars in expired drugs.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Suchet.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I take it that no other committee member wishes to ask any question at this time. I myself have a few. Thank you. Mr. Suchet, can I start from the very beginning? And I just want to make some points so that it's clear to the members of the public looking on, because the public looking on at a sterile presentation may not get the true idea of what the true state of the pharmaceutical retail industry in this country. Can I, for the benefit of the members of the public, can you identify which are the three major groups or companies which have multiple pharmacy locations in this country?
Mr. Chair, the Agostini group of companies which own Aventa, they are opening up, well, they have opened 10 retail outlets called Superfarm. Okay. That has been in existence and growing for over the last, I would say, 8 to 10 years. Initially, starting from 1, they have reached to 10. A couple of weeks ago, one opened again in South. One is opening next week in Carlton Center, another one Airmark. So by the end of the year, January, they'll have 13 outlets. During the last years, approximately roughly November last year, they also purchased the M-Farm stores from Massey Holdings. So collectively, they currently have 21 stores and will be 23 in January. In addition to that, the other big retail chain that we have locally are the Pennywise chain of pharmacies with 10 outlets and the 10 Pennywise stores.
All right. Now, I want to thank you for that. Now, my particular concern is, from your research, the concentration of the M-Farm and Superfarm and Pennywise locations, if we could call it that. So can I, for the sake of clarity, try to put a compendious name on it, the group pharmacies as opposed to private pharmacies? So if we could draw a distinction there, okay? Yeah. Where is the concentration on the group-owned pharmacies? Is it in urban areas, or are they scattered throughout rural areas, or is it a mix, a convenient or a nice mix, if we could call it that?
Mr. Chair, to answer your question, as with any good business plan and thing, nobody would want to go in an area where they're not making money. So they have concentrated these in all the locations, for example, Westmoreland, Santa Margarita, St. Augustine.
All right, so the short answer to that, it is largely urban areas.
It is largely urban areas where
right, so, and that gets me to the next point I'm making. Mm-hmm. So the rural, semi-rural areas are largely serviced by the private pharmacy owners. Am I correct in that?
The 500 pharmacies existing in this country, excluding those group pharmacies, yes, serve urban, middle, upper, and most of the rural areas.
All right. So insofar as the data you've provided, it seems to me quite clear that because of the large percentage controlled by these group-owned pharmacies in terms of the import value and the import volume, they are able to, as you conveniently described it to us, they are vertically integrated systems which they import and they sell to their own pharmacies.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Right. Now, the rural pharmacies, because of the concentrated supply chain, they have no choice but to go to these vertically integrated business groups to buy pharmaceuticals. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct, sir. And to make matters worse now, the Pennywise chain also has become a problem because they are able to purchase from these companies.
Let's not individualize it for now. We'll get there. I just want to establish a parameter of principles, if we could call it that. Okay?
They don't operate with principles.
Mr. Suchit, can I just
Sorry,
ask
sir.
you to save the emotional hyperbole? We are going
Okay.
to deal with this in a methodical manner.
Thank you.
All right? Sorry about that.
My apologies, no problem.
Right. So having established that because of the pricing, the import volume and the concentrated volume, that these pharmacies, is it that they're able to supply to their own pharmacies at a cheaper rate?
Yes, they do.
Now, a part of that is because they own their own advertising, the advertising is integrated.
That is also a plus.
Their transportation is integrated.
Correct.
And all the attendant costs that goes with a pharmacy also integrated.
Yes, sir.
So insofar as margins on profitability for pharmaceuticals is concerned, those margins are more or less narrowed for those group-owned pharmacies, but it's wider for the private pharmacies. Is that a correct baseline proposition?
Yes, I would agree with that statement.
Now, my concern as well is this. Insofar as pharmaceuticals which require an agent, exclusive distribution by an agent in the country, into Trinidad and Tobago, how is that concentration? Do you have any evidence as to how it's concentrated in terms of companies by percentages? Perhaps that might be might be a more relevant question for Chemistry, Food and Drugs and Ministry of Health. But if you could venture a preliminary guess, I'll be very grateful.
If I am to understand your question correctly.
All right, let me break it down simpler.
Yeah.
In a drug that affects a large part of this population, let us take diabetes drugs, which is the most popular one.
Metformin.
Metformin. Who's the agent for metformin in Trinidad?
There are several agents for metformin, but Aventa carries the most brands, brand and generic.
Okay. So the concentration of import supply and distribution network lies in Aventa, basically.
Primarily, yes.
And would you agree with me that because of that concentrated power that they have, they basically control the marketplace and the pricing and availability of it?
Yes, sir. That is the current situation. Out of 1,000, you use metformin as an example.
Yes.
But in our study, which you will see there in a graph, out of 979 products, the most commonly prescribed products in this country, 75 are from Aventa.
So hang on a second. You have compiled research here that shows out of 900 odd commonly prescribed drugs in this country.
The most prescribed and
The most
recommended.
prescribed.
Yeah.
700 of which is concentrated in a supply chain of one supplier?
Yes, sir. 74% is the actual percentage. And this survey was not only done with Aventa, it was done with 7 of the major companies: Brighton, Suncrest, Allsons Marketing, M&D, Aventa. So we didn't use data and information just from their product range, but from all the major companies and the product lines.
So because of such a concentrated power in the marketplace, what is the pricing disparity between the pharmacies which are owned by the groups and the private pharmacies? Surely you must have some information as to pricing disparity.
Yes, we have significant pricing disparity, and that is one of the major concerns right now, because over the last year, 2 years, we are seeing the superfarm stores using what you would call, I would say, loss leader, meaning no profit, but they are making profit. For instance, my pharmacy might purchase a box of Panadol from the Aventa for $20, but Superfarm would be selling it for $19, my excuse, sorry. So they are selling it actually at the cheap, less than the wholesale price they are selling to our retail outlets.
All right, hang on. Let's just stop there for a moment. So Panadol, which is perhaps the most widely used painkiller in this country.
Yes.
You are telling this committee that it is habitually common for the distributor, the importer and distributor of this widely used pharmaceutical to sell it to private pharmacies at a higher price than that which they sell themselves?
They are
Sell it to
selling
themselves?
the wholesale price to a private pharmacy, for example, whoever, is $20. But the retail price in Superfarm and M-Farm is $19. When I pay
Okay, stop there for a moment. So Aventa, being the importer, sells you it at a wholesale price for $20.
Correct.
They then, having the cost of distribution, advertising, paying a pharmacist, paying staff, everything else that goes with it, are able to sell the identical box of Panadol to the public
below the cost price.
At $19?
Correct, sir. And that has been going on with several different items over the last year. They periodically do that.
Well, okay, when you say several other items, Mr. Suchit, I mainly want to concentrate on items which are critical to the aged and the infirm in this country. Blood pressure drugs, diabetes. We know the afflictions that are common throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago is rampant with diabetes and high blood pressure, kidney disease, all of that. So I want to know, what is the pricing disparity that exists between the private pharmacies and these group-owned pharmacies? That's what I'm interested in.
There's a significant disparity in pricing in the markups that we are able to survive, because we have to keep dropping our markups. Us meaning the other pharmacies in this country have to keep dropping our markups to try to survive in some way to compete. And to mention something, Aventa controls all the critical pharmaceuticals in this country.
Now, hold on. I think for the benefit of the public, I'm sorry to stop you, but I think for the benefit of the public, we need to identify what exactly you mean by the critical pharmaceuticals. If you could assist us with that, I'll be very grateful.
Critical, they carry all the specialty products, meaning oncology, gastrointestinal, all cancer drugs, high-end, high-cost. They carry everything: hypertension, stomach problems, ulcers, glaucoma, every imaginable complaint that a patient has. Aventa has positioned themselves to be controlling all the international drug brand houses, all the major ones, and all the major generic brands also. And over the last year, they have also been acquiring the generic brands from some of the small and medium companies. So basically, they are controlling everything that covers all critical illnesses in this country. If you, let me put it even simpler for the population and for this committee. If you are to open a pharmacy to successfully run it, 74% of the items that you have to purchase, eliminating drinks and snacks and those sundries, pharmaceuticals, 74% of that comes from Aventa. Primarily, third schedule drugs, antibiotic, narcotic, controlled. Everything is from Aventa. Does that answer your question?
It does. It's rather elucidating. But what I want to also ask you as a follow-up to that, this complaint which you've laid bare before us today and made plain by the provision of statistics, you alluded to the fact earlier that there were several meetings with the Ministry of Health at some time ago, and I've seen it in your submission here. And there was a promise to launch an online platform, which we will deal with shortly. Was this concentrated power, I think how you put it is pricing and supply discrimination, the compendious term. Pricing and supply discrimination. Was that brought to the attention of the ministry?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And let me ask you this, Mr. Ali is here. Was Mr. Ali at the ministry at the time?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And this was brought, Mr. Ali was part of the committee to which this was, the attention of which was brought to?
Yes, sir.
And subsequent to that, did you receive any feedback from the ministry at all?
No, but we are in the process of trying to get a follow-up meeting to hopefully address this, hopefully.
All right, so let's now get to the other aspect. The ministry deals with one aspect in terms of the approvals and all of that, and we'll explore that with the appropriate person. And I want to give notice that to the ministry officials and the chemistry, food and drugs officials that I intend to ask some questions about that. So if you could put yourself into a state of preparedness to answer those questions. I want to ask you about communication with the Fair Trade Commission. I noticed in your submission, you said that at some point in time, yes, I'll get there. At some point in time, the association formed the view, after receiving legal advice, that you ought to draw this pricing and supply discrimination practice to the attention of the Fair Trade Commission. Did you do so?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Am I to take it, and I have it from a colleague provided to me in private practice. I want a full disclosure here. I have copies of the correspondence. By letter dated 6th September 2024 by J. Young and Company.
Correct.
These practices were brought to the attention of the Fair Trade Commission?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Now, this letter was sent on 6th of September 2024, okay?
Yeah.
Mr. Young, who practices out of Mansfield Chambers. 7 days later, on the 13th of September 2024, are you aware that the Fair Trade Commission wrote to Mr. Young acknowledging receipt of his complaint about these practices?
Yes, Mr. Chair, but they also wrote the Pharmacy Board before that period to inquire as to why or if the Pharmacy Board had received a complaint, which I found to be very strange.
Right. Now, have you familiarized yourself with the contents of the first response from the Fair Trade Commission?
Yes, I have everything here.
Right. Is it correct to say that in the first paragraph, the Fair Trade Commission acknowledged receipt of the 6th September letter?
Yes.
And in the second paragraph, this is what the Fair Trade Commission says, and I want to put Mr. Narayan Singh on notice that I intend to ask him about this. Having reviewed the information that was provided, please be advised that it relates to the oversight, investigation, governance, and enforcement of anti-competitive practices in the local healthcare and pharmaceutical sector. The Commission is the only authorized statutory authority to do so. You see that in the letter?
Yeah.
Okay. Then the Commission goes on to further advise the association. However, please note, in order to formally begin the complaints procedure, the Commission requires that an official complaints form be completed and submitted to the Commission. Let me ask you this frontally. Was an official complaint ever made?
No, Mr. Chair, the official complaint was never made.
Right. But we'll come back to that, because I have a different view on that.
Yes.
I want to ask you about that. Then the Commission goes on to identify where you can find the relevant forms.
Correct.
Okay? And then, in the penultimate paragraph of the letter, the Commission essentially advises you as to a shopping list of documents that they would require and require you to perform.
Well, shopping list isn't putting it mildly, yes.
Yes, I'm trying to be very polite to the Commission here. And it goes on, all documents, data, well, it's 8 items. It goes to documents, data, information, affected parties, copies of statements, description of the relevant facts, information about the business, specify the nature and scope of the business, indicate a relationship between the legal entity and natural persons, a description of the complainant's position in the market, plainly not understanding that this was an amalgamation of private pharmacies formed for the purposes of lodging this.
Correct.
Bringing to the attention, I'm not going to put it as high as I was lodging a complaint, but bringing to the attention of the Commission relevant facts which ought to have triggered the statutory duty of the Commission. And submit statistics or other data in your possession that relate to the facts set out in the particular. So that is sent to you on the 13th of September 2024. Yeah. You agree with me?
Yes, sir.
Then nothing happens for another 8 months or 9 months. The next you hear from the Commission is the 17th of June 2025 by way of letter forwarded again to Mr. Young under the hand of the Executive Director, Mr. Narayan Singh. But then, 9 months later, the Commission refers to a newspaper article dated June 15, 2025, in which the government will review CEDAP 4.4 billion spent over the last 10 years. Then the Commission very aptly and appropriately alludes to its statutory duty and the power vested in the Commission by way of an enabling act, the statute. And then the Commission says, in light of these developments, we wish to advise that there may be sufficient grounds for members of the Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association to submit formal complaints to the Commission regarding potential breaches of the Fair Trading Act. Did you understand that to mean that the Commission, based on the information that you had brought to its attention, did you understand that to mean that the Commission had arrived at the prima facie position that some case existed to commence an investigation?
Yes, yes.
I'm not going to read all of this. So you understand, your answer to that is yes?
Yes, we understood that.
Right. Did you further understand from the contents of the letter that once again, the Commission was placing the onus on the association to actually lodge a complaint?
Thank you for pointing out to the committee here. Yes.
So instead of, and we'll get to the provisions of the Act shortly, which I think is perhaps more appropriate to deal with Mr. Narayan Singh. It might be somewhat unfair to ask you to comment on the provisions of the Act.
Mr. Chair, is it okay for me to just make a very, very brief statement? It's in line with this. It's in line with this. The reason why we, as you indicated, we realized that the Fair Trade Commission acknowledged there's a problem and want an official complaint or take us to the matter. But when we looked at the legislation with the Fair Trade Commission...
I'm going to get to that.
All right, well then you take it from here.
I am getting to that. Trust me, I'm getting to that. And then again, having informed the association that the Commission had arrived at the preliminary view that there existed reasonable prima facie grounds for the initiation of a complaint, the Commission then once again gives the association the extensive shopping list that it gave to you 9 months before.
Yes, sir.
And that, in essence, summarizes your interaction with the Commission. As of today, are you aware whether any investigation has been launched?
No investigation has been launched, but we have met with the Fair Trade Commission under Minister Maraj. For quite a while, there has been no existing board. So we requested a meeting. So we met with him and Mr. Narayan Singh with some recommendations, which is also contained in our detailed report.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
My concern is not that. My concern is the historic concern, which we will get to with Mr. Narayan Singh shortly. I want to go to the the Chemistry, Food and Drug Division. Am I to take it that the association and its members have tried in the past, I'm summarizing what you've said in the report which you submitted to us, that there exists, I want to be very careful in what I say and not put the cases higher than what you have put it. But am I to understand that insofar as the approval for new importation of new pharmaceuticals are concerned, that the association is deeply concerned that there exists a disparity in the approval process? You've basically said so in your submission.
Well, when you look at the approvals and the companies that the approvals a conclusion can be made that something is a bit off in the companies that get the majority of the approvals. Yes.
Okay, so what is the average time that an approval takes to obtain from Chemistry, Food and Drug when the private pharmacies submit the applications for the approval? I'm seeing, Mr. Suchit, I'm seeing Mr. Maharaj, who is behind you, raising his hand.
Yeah.
Does he have your authorization to speak to this issue?
Well,
I rather suspect that that's what he wants to do.
At this point in time, Mr. Maharaj would be the ideal person to conduct anything concerning chemistry, food and drug, and the registration processes.
All right. Can I invite Mr. Maharaj then to address us on that? The short question is this. In the opinion of the association, does there exist a disparity, a time disparity in the approval process?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and also to the committee. Well, I'm also speaking also in the capacity as a small distributor. I distribute a line of vitamins and so on. I've been doing that now for the past 7 years. And there is a level of, how I should say, constraints. And there's also a level of, I mean, I can't really speak for the other companies per se, but I could also speak for myself and speak with other small distributors. It takes approximately, on an average, for when you submit your things for approval, approximately about 6 months. Now, I have seen in the past where it is that people have submitted certain things and they have gotten it within 3 months or whatever it is. But on average, for the number of years that I have submitted items, and it's vitamins, it's not even pharmaceuticals. It's vitamins coming from the United States. It takes an average of 6 months from the time you submit to getting the notice of approval. So there is a serious bottleneck. In addition to that, over the past couple of years, like within post-2020, the Chemistry, Food and Drug Division have added on additional requirements.
Okay, stop there for a moment. Can I ask you to stop there for a moment?
Sure.
When did that policy change take place in 2020? Do you recall?
Yes. I don't know exactly the month, but when I made a submission in 2020, they had added on a couple more requirements, and I brought this to the attention of Mr. Khan at that time, which was certificate of analysis of excipients. Now, the excipients in a particular drug, I'll just go into a little bit of detail now, if you would indulge me. These are like the fillers in your tablet, not the active ingredients. The good manufacturing practice of raw materials, which I think is very impossible to get because it's raw materials you're talking about, and then some other items.
Now, let me ask you this. That change of policy, how was that communicated to you, to the industry on the whole?
It was only communicated when I made an application for a new drug approval.
Have you ever seen a document informing the public that there was a policy change regarding these additional items?
No, not in 2020.
Have you ever seen the Chemistry, Food and Drug Division ever publish a policy document telling you what are the requirements?
Yes. But within this particular time period, which was probably post-2020.
Perhaps I could make it easier. When the decision was changed, the policy was changed post-2020, is the document you're referring to one that existed prior to 2020?
No.
So when was the first policy document you saw?
This would have been probably 2022, I believe, yeah.
And how was that disseminated to you?
Only when it is that I made that application and I saw the new requirements that were, proposed.
let's take it then a step further. A person wishing to import any particular pharmaceutical who would travel abroad, incur the expenses of going to, as we say, lock in the distributorship for that pharmaceutical and so on. Did that person have any way of knowing through any public medium what were the requirements for importation?
Not to my knowledge, Mr. Chair.
So it is only when you made an application you would be told post-2022 what were the requirements?
Correct.
And prior to 2022, how did the Food and Drug Division communicate its requirements to potential importers? What? It was on an ad hoc basis?
Well, there is something on the website that you can go, and then you will see the documents which gives you the forms.
When was that first appearance of those documents, that list of documents? When did it first appear on the website?
I can't recall.
Ministry officials are here. They could perhaps assist us with that better.
But, Mr. Chair, just one more thing I just wanted to say. Prior, following these changes, we have had correspondence from Chemistry, Food and Drug, which has reverted back to the old requirements. I mean, there's still a lot of stringent requirements, but it has reverted to the old requirements where they have eliminated some of the things.
And when did that occur?
That would have been in October of this year.
Okay.
September, October.
Was that shift and change in policy explained to the association or the importer in any way whatsoever?
Yes, yes.
Why was it done? Did they give a rationale for going back to the old requirements and eliminating the other requirements?
No official explanation.
But Mr. Maraj, surely, if a policy is being formulated and requirements for importation are being formulated in a compendious fashion, surely each requirement must serve a legitimate public purpose. What I want to know is what was the reason for the change in the first place to put in these additional requirements if the ministry could easily revert to the old requirements. What was the need for the additional requirements in the first place?
That will be something you'll have to probably direct to
No, I see a gentleman, I think from your association, with his hand up waving frantically in the back, so I'm going to invite him to address me.
Mr. Chair, not waving frantically, but I did put my hand up. In this industry, it is known that it's very difficult to register products for import in Trinidad and Tobago. It is exceedingly difficult. Now, let me just make another point. The importance of generics in our market is critically important, as you alluded in your statement sometime before, with respect to chronic diseases. For example, a drug that has a patency is normally given a certain amount of time so that people will recover for the expense of bringing that drug to market. When the patent is finished, it's normally 7, 10 years, 11 years, it depends on the type of drug. The world is given a chance to now manufacture copies of the drugs called generics. Even then, we have very difficult circumstances in Trinidad and Tobago where we can register generics so that people may benefit from lower pricing. One more point. There are a lot of people who think that the brand name is superior to the generic. Generally, that is not so, because we've had people for 12 to 15 years living on generics with chronic diseases and doing exceedingly well. I go back to the point where it is very difficult from an industry standpoint or retail industry standpoint to have products registered in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Can I ask you this then, on the generic argument? Is it that generic drugs are commonly used in advanced economies and advanced countries?
Of course.
Throughout Europe, North America, Asia?
Of course, if you look at CNN periodically, you see the President of the United States trying to bring the cost of medicines down And one of the ways is it is by bringing in generics.
Can I take it then that there's no generally accepted international best practice that discriminates against the use of generic drugs?
Not anymore.
Thank you very much. I just have one more area. The National Drug Advisory Committee, Mr. Suchet. You alluded to the fact that in that Drug Advisory Committee, how has that committee been functioning, in your view?
They haven't been functioning, simply. And the reason why I'm saying that, they exist, we don't know who they are. We have, on our submission to the Ministry of Health, we had requested to find out who actually on the Drug Advisory Committee. I believe Mr. Patron is the secretary of that committee. We wanted to know how regular they meet. We wanted more information. Nothing was forthcoming. But the Drug Advisory Committee is basically the authority that will accept submissions for review and approvals or recommendations for additional information.
So you don't know who that committee comprises?
No.
It has never been made public?
Before, years ago, yes, it used to be public information. Now, that is one of the requests. Most of those committees that in existence in the Ministry of Health previously, the Tenders Committee, the Drug Advisory Committee, it seemed to be privately guarded.
Yes, but the difficulty I have with that, you see, is this. The composition of those committees are prescribed by statute.
Well, yes, Mr.
Section
Chair.
26 of the Food and Drugs Act.
I am aware of that, but a funny thing too.
This is what it says.
Yeah.
It establishes a Drug Advisory Committee and a Food Advisory Committee.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could cut through all the legislative minutiae and get to the heart of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it also says that the committees mentioned in subsection 1 shall be representative of lay and professional interests and shall comprise such persons as by reason of their knowledge, interest, and experience are considered suitable for appointment thereto.
Yeah. Correct. And
has your association ever been consulted for a nominee on that committee?
We have made several recommendations. No, we have not been consulted, no appointed. I'm not even sure if they have a pharmacist on the committee.
Okay. I'm going to ask Mr. Mohammed, who is the president of the pharmacy board. Has your board ever been consulted for a nominee on that committee?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay. And I'm going to ask Mr. Ali, those committees exist?
Yes, Chair, the Drug Advisory Committee does exist.
Right. And does it fulfill its statutory prescription requirement?
Yes, it does.
Lay persons?
I don't have the membership in front of me.
Well, you could
Chair.
undertake to produce
Sure.
it for us. I'm sure you will.
Yes, I will, Chair.
And I am sure that when we get that list, it's going to fulfill the statutory prescription outlined in the Act with lay persons. And you understand why lay persons form an integral part of that committee, because lay persons form the link between the committee and the public. So it serves a legitimate public purpose. Okay, I think I have kept you long enough, Mr. Suchet. I know my colleague, Senator John Baines, has a question.
Okay, I just wanted to ask some questions as it relates to your statistics, because you've helpfully provided us with a lot of facts here as it relates to market share in your package to us. But I note you would have said that I note it's been called small or private or independent pharmacies, right? Not those in the grouping.
Yeah.
You all had to drop your prices to compete in the market. You would have said that, yes?
The market forces dictate that because once the companies that control the majority of products that you have to buy, they also have the ability to control the pricing and they keep going up,
Right.
but then drop it for their own stores.
I understood
So
that.
our option is either no sale
Mhm.
or keep dropping, contracting.
Right, I understood that.
Yeah.
And you had indicated there were like 500 small or private pharmacies, was that
According to the statistics from the Pharmacy Board, we have
About 500.
Good morning, everyone, again. Let me just quickly interject. We have currently registered 534 pharmacies in Trinidad and Tobago, some of which, of that population, comprises of the chain pharmacies.
Right, but I think we would have gotten a number about
Right.
20-something in the
So
chain.
if we have 530-something, approximately 30 with the chain, so we
Yes.
do have 500 pharmacies
Operating.
independently owned.
Right, no problem. And I believe I would have found online that per capita, per 100,000, in OECD countries, they have about 28 pharmacies per capita. Would you agree? I don't know if you would agree with that figure, or you have any idea as to the average number of pharmacies per 100,000
I am not
individuals?
familiar with that, but
Right.
if that is what you say, yeah.
Okay.
But concentrations are very high in the populated areas.
Right. But so I guess what I'm trying to understand is, from my research, 500 pharmacies of independent pharmacies in a country like ours is a large number of pharmacies, yes?
Yeah.
Right. So do you have any data, because you said your organization was formed about 2 years ago, do you have any data as it relates to closure of pharmacies in the last 2 years?
That is an ongoing process on an annual basis. We have several pharmacies being closed, several pharmacies. The president of the Pharmacy Board might be in a better position to answer that question.
Yes. So during the course of the period which I was present, 2024 to 2026, which is next year, we have had submissions on an average of 38 pharmacies closing down due to market forces. And the Pharmacy Board itself, during our investigation, has closed approximately 15 pharmacies for breaches of the law.
But would you agree with me, in a population of 1.3 or 1.4 million, 500 pharmacies is a high number of pharmacies in our country?
It is a high number. However, it satisfies the shortages that we tend to get at the public sector. So the private sector really plays an integral role in the healthcare management of patients in this country, because of many times, due to procurement issues and drug shortages at the public institutions, you would find patients coming back to the pharmacies with their prescriptions semi-filled, and they have no choice but to purchase some of these medications. So
I've had that experience. I had to get it at the private pharmacy. So we understand and we appreciate the work of the private pharmacies, but you would still agree with me then that 500 pharmacies, then having a pharmacy is still a profitable, despite the market share and the competition that you would have highlighted, having a pharmacy is still a profitable business in this country.
yes, but with challenges now.
No problem. Mr. Suchet would have also indicated that Aventa carries, he said all these specialty drugs, hypertension, and they, basically that was the assessment, that they control they have all the drugs and equipment that is needed to manage healthcare for someone, yes?
Generally, every complaint that an individual that's seen a private doctor or institutions for,
yes,
rest assured, Aventa carries medication that they will have to buy from them or can access from smaller distributors if necessary or if not available.
No problem. So is there anything legally stopping any of these smaller pharmacies from stocking these items?
Yeah.
Legal, yes.
If they're selling the Superfarm and M-Farm and they're selling at cheaper prices.
Oh, no. I meant legally, not necessarily, not in terms
No,
of market
we have no issue of the legality of purchasing the medication.
Yes.
The 500 pharmacies, excluding the group chains,
yes,
they purchase any and everything that they will have. The problem is the unfair trading with the pricing.
Right. Okay, thank you. And I think my last, well, I have two questions, but one is really more directed to I think it will be chemistry, food and drug is in relation to, can I direct it to them, or we will come back to the chemistry? You get that?
But before you go, if I could finish answering the question that I guided to Mr. Mohammed.
Sure.
Pharmacies in this country, yes, we have 500 pharmacies. Your question about the per capita, the ratio, right, of the population, 1.3, 1.4 million people to 500 pharmacies. Figures will tell you one thing, reality is a different thing, right? Now, one of the problems that we recognize that one pharmacy shouldn't be open to our next pharmacy, next door to our next pharmacy, ideally, because it may indicate profitability, as you have pointed out. But since 1962, the laws of the Pharmacy Board has not been reviewed and entertained, and new amendments and laws are being made to be able to probably look at the proximity of pharmacies, right? And just, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
So you would want the proximity of the pharmacies to be regulated by a law versus economic?
Not a law, not necessarily a law, right? But put things in place to make sure that you have a concentration of pharmacies. We don't want San Fernando to have 200 pharmacies and Moruga and Cedras have none.
But the laws of economics wouldn't dictate that. Isn't that basically about supply and demand? Why one area would have two pharmacies, open next to each other versus another? Because I assume the two pharmacies wouldn't open if they were not, unless they were not able to supply the demand and also make a profit.
This might be off topic, but per capita, do you know how much KFC outlets we have in this country?
Apparently a lot.
Do you know that in the entire world, KFC on Independence Square has more people entering their doors than anywhere in the world?
I've heard that.
All right. All these are things that need to be addressed. So we are trying to work on the pharmaceuticals now, and where are we going?
Okay, and I have one more question.
But I appreciate your concern.
I have one more question.
Mr. Chair, can I answer that question about the number of pharmacies? Ma'am, 15 years ago, the university trained about 12 to 13 pharmacists. Now we are training 60 to 70 or 80 every year. That brings us to the question, where are we finding jobs for all these people? The government takes a part of them. We may take a part of them, the private pharmacies, and then you have a very large number of people who cannot find jobs. And hence the reason why there are so many pharmacies being opened. With respect to profitability, profitability has been severely down over the last 10 years. May I repeat that? Profitability in small pharmacies are very much now down over the past 10 years. I just want to add one thing. The most critical thing that we look at in the private pharmacy business association is how we serve members of the public. And you are correct. We are seeing pharmacies now reaching as far as Toko and Cedras and all of that. And it is in that context that we've started to pick up this fight with respect to preserving why small pharmacies should survive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Minister John?
I suppose my colleague is free to ask any question, but we open a free market economy, a free market system, so anybody with the money could open a pharmacy anywhere. I don't think there's any prohibition against that. So I think we need to focus on this short time we have with respect to the nature of the inquiries into the state's acquisition of pharmaceuticals as it relates to the current process applicable to its importation and approval. I think that is what we are here to do.
Yes, so that's why my questions were concentrated on that.
I just want us to be focused on that because I don't have a whole day. So some important points emerged where it is said that one operator has harnessed somehow 70% of the market. And basically, I think we should all be concerned about that because that also has to do with how price, supply and demand interact. Because the fact that you have a monopolistic situation that has emerged, and I think somewhere in our written document, I've seen where at least 40% of the market indicates that a monopoly has arisen or there's a monopolistic situation here. But my colleague senator, who is has the doctorate in economics, I think probably will go further on that. Notwithstanding, with respect to the chairman's questioning, I think the Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association had not seen fit to really indicate or make a formal report to the Fair Trading, what do they call themselves? Right, the Fair Trade Commission. And I find that's a dereliction of duty, right? Because if you have all this written up and you have here I think you have a case to prosecute, but you can't come in this room. I mean, yes, you have a right to, of course, but certainly I think if there's a process, a methodology, that too, after all of this, because I've been hearing this for quite some time, and if you all have not written a formal complaint against this 70% ownership, I think there's an issue.
Well, Ms. John, I totally agree with you and I understand, but so far we have not been given the opportunity by the chair or the committee to really explain why the chair did go into the detailed requirements that the Fair Trade Commission thing. But the problem that we have really and found ourselves in, the Fair Trade Commission legislation in this country is totally inadequate to do anything. We should have a Fair Trade Commission, if I may complete, please. We should have a Fair Trade Commission here that is in line with first world countries like the Complaint Management Authority in England, where they can open their eye and they don't have to wait on somebody to complain, but they can open their eyes and see what is going on in different...
Can I ensure members and participants that the next on the batting order is the Fair Trade Commission, and that is a matter I propose to explore with them in some detail. So I can reassure my learned friend, Ms. John, Minister John, that that is a matter I intend to pursue and pursue quite vigorously with the Executive Director.
Chairman, notwithstanding, I think there are over 500 operators who are affected, and if not one of them would have seen fit to write, to decide that they're going to use the formal avenues that are available to them, then I don't see why we should be stomping all over the Fair Trade Commission.
Mr. Chair, if I may
please,
just...
if I can continue.
A minute, sorry.
Who is that? Please, right? To ask them, why didn't you use your own impetus, to go and treat with 500 people who are affected? They say they're affected. In addition, I have one other question. I don't have all the questions. In the report, well, no, I have two other questions, actually. It's alleged that Aventa TNT Limited received between 2020, well, over a 5-year period or a 3-year period, USD over $100 million US. So what is being stated here is that we don't have a forex shortage problem. We really have a distribution problem. And so I really will want to hear from the Exim Bank. What would have been the rationale for just handing over all of this money to this one company when others were struggling to get even a minimal allocation? The last question, so that is for the head of the Exim Bank, who is here, and the chairman of the procurement regulator. I'm very happy she's here, because just this morning I was reading a letter from your good self, and I was very happy for the reminder that agencies under the ministry, they were reminded that every 3 months they must send their report. I'm wondering what has been happening under NIPDEC. Were they not sending their report that one could have seen that this one operator was hogging 70% of the business? Because it was very clear. I mean, if it is they were doing as the law dictated they do, then that should have been very clear and transparent that something is happening here, that there was a very aggressive monopolistic situation, which was not in keeping with our free market economy. And notwithstanding whether the laws are adequate or they're not adequate, there's a process. And if you don't avail yourself of the process, nothing will happen. We can't just assume, right? So if it is, we can hear from the Exim Bank and then the procurement regulator as to what the reporting arrangements of NIPDEC or whomever has to report on how the way they what do you call it, the procurement, how they exercise that whole arrangement within NIPDEC to get to the preferred bidder or supplier distributor. How does that happen, and is there any clarity, or is there anything that would have triggered the procurement regulator to look further into this issue? So if you can hear from the Exim Bank first, please.
Okay, thank you, Ms. John, for that very applicable question. So one of the things I want to point out is on the Essentials program, which is the foreign exchange for essentials programs, which includes food, medicine, and other essential items. There are 30 pharmaceutical companies accessing this Forex window at present. 7 are considered large, 5 are medium, and 18 are small importers. Our program is intended for the goods to reach to the public on the shelves of the stores. So we do have an exclusion. It's not for NIPDEC invoices or for sale into the public system. I believe NIPDEC would handle that. This is the private system that my colleague spoke about. In terms of determining allocations, not just for pharmaceuticals, but across our various products and services, we use a number of different empirical data points to come up with the amounts that we would allocate to a company. The first one on application is we don't just ask for your invoices only, we ask for all your financial statements as a company. And when we get your financial statements, there's a line on your income statement that says cost of goods sold, which is the total amount of purchases of items that you would have purchased in the last fiscal year. So that would be one of the avenues that we would look at that data point to see that it makes sense, the amount of foreign exchange allocated for a particular company, matches somewhat their purchases. But we also get monthly trade data straight from the BizLink system from the Ministry of Trade, both import and export data for those that export, right? And we are able to also, again, use another metric that will monitor and ensure that the allocations are going to companies that are able to continue to fulfill that obligation. There are a few other things that we look at in terms of, how some companies use their allocation. Some, believe it or not, not everybody uses all of their allocation in 1 month. And if they do not use all, then the next month they will get a little bit of a reduced amount, right? So your usage is one of the factors as well. And then we also look at things like number of invoices and how quickly you are able to send the TT dollars in to pay for it. And again, one other item which is important for newer companies is that we ask for all applications of essential items that the companies submit an immediate list of payables, right? So we see which suppliers, and in that case, even at the application stage, before we start transaction processing, we are able to do enhanced due diligence checks on various suppliers, especially if we haven't dealt with them before. So that is so it is based on a market-based system, Minister, and these different inputs is what feeds into the allocation amounts. And as I said, it's covering about 30 companies at this point in time, just
John,
specific to pharmaceuticals.
With your permission, can I interject?
Thank you.
Mr. Dukaran, you are aware that Exim Bank is not the only source of Forex accessed by importers. Are you not?
Correct, yes, sir. We're only one part.
So when an application is made to the Exim Bank for Forex, do you ask to see the bill of lading?
Yes.
Do you ask to see the invoices?
100%, yes.
Do you
pay
verify
directly to the international suppliers? Sorry.
Yeah. And you pay to the international suppliers. Do you verify these invoices come from the international suppliers? Is there a process of verification?
Yes, sir. In what we call anti-money laundering techniques,
No,
we have to use a risk-based assessment.
I am not concerned about that.
No, I know.
What I am concerned about is this. Very often, and Mr. Juman will tell you this, importers form supply companies in the United States to supply themselves with different shareholding so that it doesn't meet the reporting requirements of the 6th schedule in the Customs Act. And Mr. Juman will explore that with him when he comes for common ownership and so on. And then this supply company buys from the manufacturer in the US, but they ship to the company in Trinidad. Is there anything done by Exim Bank to verify that the party from whom the invoice emanates is not a related party in Trinidad to the company in Trinidad?
Yes, sir, we definitely do, across all our product lines.
No. I think you're not getting what I'm asking you. Is there any process to verify that the supply company which issues the invoice is a legitimate company and not a related party to the importing company? Is there any process you undertake to do so?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is that process?
Okay. So what we do is we have a list of suppliers that we continuously do business with, which are brand name companies like Merck, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and all these different kind of companies. And they are well known. And whenever we have a company, a supplier that's coming in that is not on our current list, we have an extra due diligence check that we do where we go back and ask the client, right? We first of all our transactions, they sign an attestation that it's not to a related party, but I know that could still be gamed to some extent. So what we do is then we ask a few different questions. Is this your first time supplying to this, buying from this supplier? What due diligence checks have you done on this supplier? We also ask a further question, which is, can you please reconfirm the banking details directly with the supplier via telephone? Because sometimes you could get email transactions. Those are some of the things we do from the client side. But what we also do, Chair, is we have what you call an enhanced due diligence route. And that is where we do everything from doing corporate searches on the suppliers in the international jurisdiction. We would also, and I'll tell you this, one time we even found a potential supplier that when you Google Street View, map this thing, it looked like a residential house.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and so we were able to stop that in its tracks. We also were able to perform, then all the transactions for that supplier would go through that type of enhanced due diligence. So there are a number of different checks, including things like looking at to see where the location is and corporate searches internationally.
Right. So now I have a follow-up question to that. Exim Bank is not the sole provider of Forex in this country. You are aware that the 4-5 big banks, all the banks, also provide Forex. Is there any way that Exim Bank, when it's presented with an invoice and a bill of lading, cross-references with any other financial institution to determine that there's no double dipping going on? That's what I want to know.
Chair, I will tell you that we do not have that check currently available.
Right.
However, we do submit monthly transaction level to the central bank.
Right. So there is a lingering probability that an importer applying to Exim Bank with the same documents can also apply to the commercial banks for Forex allocation for the same product with the same document, because there's no cohesive integrated system that applies across the board that ensures there's not double and triple dipping. Are you agreeing with me?
Yes, correct. You're correct, sir.
Are you further agreeing with me that that is a fundamental weakness in the Forex system that needs to be addressed?
I would say this is why all banks are regulated under the Financial Institutions Act by the central bank, as well as in some other different acts. And our reporting requirements are to the regulator, which we do fulfill regularly, and we are up to date on all statutory obligations. In the case of all other banks, they also submit transaction level data to the central bank. And I would think in order to prevent what you call market collusion and all these different things, it's better to have an objective regulator that probably has that role to play in a system.
That's not the point I'm on, Mr. Dukaran. The point I am on is whether the system as obtained is capable of being abused by importers who are able to apply to different financial institutions for Forex using the same document. That's all I'm asking you.
Well, so what I would say to that is that the fact, our check or control on that is that we send the funds directly to the international supplier. We don't give it to the companies, the importers, in their bank account.
Right, so I'm not blaming Exim Bank.
So it does go directly.
But that practice of sending it directly to the supplier, that's because of the unique and peculiar role that the Exim Bank plays and occupies in the Forex architecture of the country. That requirement simply does not apply to the commercial banks or other institutions selling Forex, dealing in Forex. Do you agree with me?
As far as I know, sir, I believe they've started to do something similar, but it's not a requirement. Correct.
So the
For
system,
us, it is a requirement.
the short answer to my question is that the system is fully capable of being abused by importers without there being this cross-referencing to ensure that you don't have double and triple and quadruple dipping into the Forex reserves.
Well, Chair, when you send a payment for an invoice to a supplier and you send the funds directly in your reference line in the banking information, it does state the invoice number. So the recipient, which is these multinational companies, a lot of times in this case, will be able to cross-reference that invoice against...
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking at the local level. That's what I'm talking about, Mr. Dukaran.
Yeah.
So let me make it a little simpler for you. Importer A comes to Exim Bank with a peculiar invoice and a bill of lading. There's nothing preventing him from importer A going to bank X, Y, Z, and D. Nothing prevents him from that. And there's no way of detecting that within the architecture of the Forex allocation system. Would you agree with me?
Well, as I mentioned, there's the possibility of the regulator playing that role.
Yes, but
because they have the consolidated information.
All right, let me ask you this. When you send your documents to the regulator, your reports, are you required to detail specific transactions together with supporting documents to your regulator? Or simply do you do a compendious report to your regulator?
It's a transaction level report that includes invoice numbers, but not documents. They don't want the whole package. If they have an inquiry, they can inquire.
Okay. So that, but we will get into that some more. Senator Arts, is it that you wish to ask a question?
Thank you, Chairman. And my question goes back to the previous conversation around the submission by the Private Pharmacy Association and some of the issues that arose from their submission. So there's the first thing I wish to do, I think we have an opportunity because the public is listening, viewing, digesting this information. And I think it would be remiss of me if I didn't capitalize on the opportunity to clarify my professional understanding of the current situation. There was a comment made in the submission by the Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association that there is no shortage of Forex in the country. And that statement arose out of the allocation provided. And there's a conversation around the process by which, or the architecture by which allocations are made to different pharmaceuticals. So I think that statement that says if you look at the data, you will see there is no shortage of Forex. And I think it would be, as I said, remiss of me not to put a professional opinion forward on that. And I think for the benefit, as I said, for the population that's looking on at this. The issue is that in Trinidad and Tobago, I think that is no secret, and we have the benefit of the Honorable Minister and two members of his team here. For the benefit of the viewing public, our country is still heavily dependent on the energy sector for foreign exchange earnings, the bulk of our foreign exchange earnings. And what has been happening since 2014, 2015, 2016, thereabouts, is that we found a decline, we, the Royal We, in Trinidad and Tobago, there's been a decline in terms of our domestic production, and ergo, our ability to earn as much foreign exchange from the energy sector as we used to in the past. But juxtaposed to that, or alongside with that decline in our earning potential from the energy sector, is that our current exchange rate system, and this is not a conversation around what kind of exchange rate we should or should not have in Trinidad and Tobago. We currently find ourselves in a situation where we continue to have an unabated demand for foreign exchange. Our appetite for foreign exchange in the country has continued unabated because of the exchange rate that we currently enjoy. So what we find ourselves having is a mismatch between demand and supply, and which is where the conversation around the shortage in Forex arises, because you have excess demand and not as much supply of Forex. So there is, in fact, a shortage because we're not meeting the demand that we have for foreign exchange. So I just wanted to place on record a professional comment in terms of what was in the document. But I want to use that to segue into what I think are some beneficial, because I'm speaking here as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago who would benefit from lower pharmaceutical prices. So one of the comments made in the submission by the Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association is, and Mr. Suchet alluded to that, the request for meetings and some of the recommendations that have been made to the Ministry of Health and some of their associated agencies, including the Food and Drug Administration. And we had, Chairman, the conversation around the Drug Advisory Committee and the fact that it seems to be either in abeyance, not in abeyance, but certainly we don't have a lot of clarity in terms of how that committee has been operating. A comment made by the Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association, which I thought was instructive and useful for us, is the whole conversation around generic drugs. And as I'm understanding that as a layperson, if we allowed for, and there was a useful contribution from one of the members of your association, that people think generic means that it's not as good as, and I think that intervention was useful because generic means that it simply has allowed from the original product, and I see the two members of your association nodding, so I'm not talking absolute nonsense. It means that it has allowed for these products, which are in demand, to be produced at a lower price. And if we were to allow the stranglehold to be removed or to relax a little bit, it means that we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, can benefit from lower prices. So my question is, a couple of questions. One, what is the, and this may be, Chairman, to the Ministry of Health, to the Food and Drug Administration, any one of those agencies, what, if any, are the constraints that prevent us to moving to a space where our population can benefit from? And I'm speaking here as Citizen Jane of Trinidad and Tobago. What has prevented us, or what is the lethargy around us moving towards something that could benefit the population? So that is one question to the Ministry of Health. And the second question, and this is what got me a little excited, the association, the Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association, in its submission, spoke that this can redound to significant cost savings to us at the national level, and I'm using cost savings in terms of US dollars because when we're reporting from our international suppliers, it's not TT dollars we're talking about US dollars, and we know that we have that challenge with the US currency. If the association can estimate what could be the potential cost saving to us in this country if we started to change to or to consider a greater allocation of generic drugs as opposed to the more expensive drugs. So it's really two questions, several little parts inside of there, but two main questions. One to the Ministry of Health in terms of my use of the term lethargy, because that is what I'm getting from this, if there is a lethargy towards us having greater consideration for the generic drugs. And then the second question is specifically posed to the association in terms of whether you've done any estimate on what are likely to be the cost savings, given, as I said in one of my opening questions, one of the major pain points here is really the allocation of foreign exchange to bring in drugs for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, for the benefit of the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much for your points and your questions. And to answer your first question very simply, with the generic drugs, monopoly. Even if we were to bring in generic drugs at a much reduced price that it could be into this country, if you have one company controlling it, they don't price the real price that they could give that to the population. They price it depending on the price to the brand name product. But when you open up the market and you have generic drugs being able, and when you cut the monopoly and you have 10 companies bringing in the same generic brands, it brings the price down to the patient. But if you have one company selling you all the brand and selling you all the generic, they just control the price. So and this is the problem we have right now, Dr.
So, Mr. Suchet, am I to understand what you're saying is that the regulatory agency that's responsible for managing these issues. So let's move away from monopoly and who has market share, etc., and who is essentially controlling the importation. There has to be a regulatory intervention inside of that. Is it that you're suggesting that the regulatory oversight that is required to allow us, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, to benefit from the generics, that regulatory oversight is not as robust as we would like it to be?
Well, it's not as robust, it's not working at all. Because this is one of the recommendations we had in the Ministry of Health and also with the thing. The generics that we are currently getting into this country, the company that's selling this generic, not pricing it at the true value that it can be given.
Not pricing it as a generic, they're pricing it as
a high-end brand. And it's bad, it's wrong, and it's a misconception, even for the pockets of the patient. And to answer your question with the savings, if you look at the detailed chart we point out here, you will see we have $174 million in cost savings. We worked out everything here for you.
You anticipated me so well. Thank you so much, Mr. Suchit. I'll
You're
have a look at
welcome,
the
Dr.
details. I
Hess.
see one of your executive members wanting to contribute.
Yes, thank you very much, Senator. What I wanted to also said, further to what Mr. Suchit said, is that the whole issue of the constraints of registration, especially where generics are concerned, and also looking at a very outdated chemistry, food and drug law that we have right now. If you notice, a lot of the generics that are being provided worldwide right now actually are coming from the East, the Eastern Bloc countries and so on. And they are coming at a much reduced cost. Plus, it's also coming with a certain level of quality. Now, based on these laws, those countries are not included in what is called the stringent regulatory authorities. The regulatory authorities that they look at reference to in Trinidad and Tobago are from the United States, Europe, Canada, and the EU countries, As I said, even from the Eastern European countries, Japan, India, a lot of those countries, and a lot of those drugs are actually being utilized in America and in the UK. So even those countries are even looking to those countries. So what needs also to be done is that we have to have legislative changes in our Chemistry, Food and Drug Act. So I just wanted to add what Mr. Suchit said.
If I could just add to Anil's, most of the APIs in the world are made in India and China.
Sorry, for our benefit, those of us who are not in the industry, APIs?
Approved pharmaceutical ingredient,
Okay.
right? Active pharmaceutical ingredient. I'm corrected by my dear friend, the principal pharmacist, who is probably much more senior than I in government business. So those APIs are generally manufactured in India and China. The question of generic arises as to why, as a people, to your question, why haven't we done a little research and probably forward ourselves in approving generics quicker, and then, for example, once a brand name is expired, the patency has expired, we can go ahead and invite companies for approval for their generics, rather than wait on one company or two companies who probably has the wherewithal, the insider information, or the ability to register these generics. So from a recommendation point of view, I would suggest that the Food and Drug or the ministry invite companies now to register these high quality generic brands to afford people, the patients or community or loved ones, cheaper prices and as good quality. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maraj. Just one quick, just circling back, because it seems that my use of the word lethargy was appropriate based on what you described. So I would like the opportunity, Chair, through you, for the Ministry of Health to at least give us some kind of response as to why we as a country have not capitalized on the availability of these generic drugs, particularly when they translate for us in real terms in foreign exchange and the situation that we face right now in terms of our constrained foreign exchange supply. So why is it that we've not capitalized on these cheaper drugs which could help us treat with the national health status and the demands of our health sector and the demands of the population, but to do so at a cheaper cost, both to the individuals and for us as a country?
Thank you. Chair, through you. Thank you, member. So let me just start by saying the Ministry of Health, through its Chemistry, Food and Drugs and Drug Inspectorate, regulates the, as we said, the approval process for pharmaceuticals. We are not the agency that treats with pricing. That is not our remit. I know there's been a lot of discussion on pricing, but so I will deal with what is under the ministry, which is the approval regulation of items coming into the country. So with regard to the public sector, let me start there first. When we tender for items, it is not by brand or generic. It's not by the name of the drug. It is by the chemical composition. My technical people can speak a lot more to that part of it afterwards. That's for the public sector. So there's no preference for brand or generic in the public sector. These are what we purchase in the public sector. With regard to the private sector, persons are free to register, apply to get their drugs registered, whether it is generic or brand. Again, the registration process does not give any preference to generic or brand. I accept the point that it may be easier, I'm using the word easier in quotation marks, to get a brand registered because it is SRA approved. Not because something is not SRA approved, it cannot be registered in the country. It may take a bit longer to be registered, but it is possible. And in terms of SRA, I know Mr. Maraj, I think, spoke about the issue of the SRA country, so to speak. Again, I will let Mr. Ali speak about the specifics there, but even if a drug is not manufactured in a non-SRA country, if it is approved for use in an SRA country, so for example, it may be manufactured in the eastern, the Far East. If it's registered for use, for example, in the US, it is SRA approved by that country's FDA, and we will place reliance on that. So it is not that if it's not from the US, the UK, those countries, it is not necessarily SRA approved, and we don't place reliance on that particular approval process. All right, but I'll let Mr. Ali speak a bit more of the specifics of it, if I may. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, PS, and thank you very much for the question, Honourable Member. So as PS Ali would have indicated, the Ministry of Health does not differentiate between a generic and a brand name drug per se. Each one of these drugs have to go through a regulatory or fulfill regulatory requirements under the Food and Drug Act. There are documentations that are required for review before we can give way to the drug being registered and then imported. One of the main issues that the Ministry of Health will look at with registration is the fact that we have companies who may not be necessarily approved in countries where drugs are manufactured and then supply those drugs through suppliers in Trinidad. I mean, those countries, we don't have representatives there to verify the registration, right? So we rely heavily on the agencies in those countries to provide information for us with companies that are legitimate and provide registered drugs, the WHO as well, the World Health Organization, PAHO, the Pan American Health Organization, to guide us in terms of those legitimate countries that would supply drugs to our country. Issues like pharmaceutical counterfeiting is big internationally, and we would not want to get ourselves into purchasing drugs that may seem generic, and when it arrives here, it gives you a placebo effect, or it doesn't work, or there are other issues associated with the drug being imported here into Trinidad and Tobago. So there are checks and balances that we go through. Yes, sometimes the requirements are a bit onerous on the persons who are supplying that information, but it is all required to ensure that the public is safe at the end of the registration process, that the public is well taken care of, and that we do not have other issues to deal with if these drugs are registered and they do not perform as they should perform.
Thank you for that. And just one close-off comment. I don't want to prolong too much, but it seems to me, from what has been described by the Ministry of Health, that due diligence, I think at the end of the day what is required is due diligence to ensure the safety of the population of Trinidad and Tobago. And in circumstances where it relates to health, there is no argument from me on that. But I also am taking away from what has been shared by the ministry colleagues that perhaps having laypersons on those committees, as has been as is the statutory requirement. I think, according to what our chairperson pointed out, I think that might be helpful because you have people who are closer to the ground who can provide that some support. But even listening to the contribution about the due diligence, I wonder how we got to a stage where we had $80 million worth of drugs being expired. How did we, is it that our system, you know, the lethargy kind of permeates every sphere of our system that we found ourselves being so careful that we had $80 million worth of expired drugs, which did not benefit anyone in the country, but it was, of course, a cost to all of us. So I'm saying that in moving forward, perhaps need to look at how we can create efficiencies within the ministry, within that process of exercising due diligence, but also create efficiencies that benefit, that redound to the benefit of the average Trinbagonian who is, you know, who's going to go to their pharmacy to get the best possible return on their, or the best possible value for their money, so to speak. Yeah.
Thank you. Chair, if I just may comment quickly, please. Yeah. Just on that last point, member, with regard to the expired pharmaceuticals, that would have been over a period of time, just to put in the context. That would have been for over a 10-year period. I don't want to say anything much more than that because NIBDEC is not here. And NIBDEC, as I said at my opening statement, they actually procure and store and distribute on our behalf. So, I mean, they would be responsible for.
But I think it's something that we would need to revisit at the appropriate time, Chair, because $80 million is a cost to us. And, you know, I know that there are certain ministers present who would probably want to have some very fulsome explanations as to how $80 million of the people's money was lost in that manner.
Thank you, Chair. Just last point from my end. That is not to say that the ministry is happy that we have that expired drugs member. We are not. It's something we are concerned about also. And just 2 points to make. I didn't mention it, but I know it's been spoken about in terms of the legislation. It is something we're looking at in terms of the Food and Drugs Act, in terms of reviewing the entire legislation to make it current. It works, but obviously there's always room for improvement. There has not been a comprehensive review of the Act. I'm not sure for how long, but it is something we're actually looking at in this fiscal year to do that review. And in terms of the application process, while it works, there is always room for improvement. We've taken on board the feedback from the PPRBA and other stakeholders. And one of the things that we're looking at is to move towards an online registration process. I'm not saying it will fix things, but it will definitely help. Thank you.
Permanent Secretary Ali, is that the same online platform that was promised to the Pharmacy Association, or is it a different one?
Chair, no, this is the where it's okay. So right now, if you want to apply to register a drug, it's done manually. So this is something, this is where you can actually apply to register a drug online.
Okay. Now, am I to take it that the requirements for registering a drug are those requirements which are contained in the Food and Drug Regulations as an appendix to the back of this Act, right? A schedule. Am I to take it that?
Mr. Ali, you want to take
Yes, yes, Chair.
Right. And these are reduced in the form of regulations, and you are aware, being senior members of the public service, that these are subsidiary legislation, has the force of law, right? So I would take it that any change of policy, which we will get back to on the next session, we can't finish all today because I'm advised by my secretary that we normally go 3 hours, but there's something I want to get on to very quickly afterwards. I would take it and I would send a supplemental requisition to you that change of policy are in adherence with these regulations and are to be found and have their foundation in compliance with these regulations. I am to take it that we are going to receive your assurance.
That is correct, Chair.
That there are no frivolous and or change of policy which do not have a foundation in these regulations. But we will get to that on the next occasion. I want to invite there's been a lot of talk about the discussion about the role of the Fair Trading Commission, and I want to ask Mr. Narayan Singh, who is we're very grateful with the limited time that we have Mr. Maraj, I see your hand up, but can I assure you that we will circle back to you, if not this session, the next session? Because
Chair, we have 3 hours, so it's 2 o'clock, we should supposed to finish. It's 1 o'clock, we have an next hour.
you have a little 20 minutes with me
okay.
again, Mr. Narayan, which I'm sure you will indulge me to that. I feel certain that you will indulge me. I know it's supposed to be 1 o'clock, but I'm going to impose on your time, if I might respectfully ask to do so.
No, I meant we have 3 hours from 11 we started, so we could have gone till 2.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, give you more time.
Probably, yes. So, Mr. Narayan Singh?
Yes, Chair.
I'm very grateful for your, and I'm sure all the members of this committee are very grateful for that very helpful submission which you made to us. It says quite a lot, but it, in some regards, but it doesn't say anything with some other regards, right? What I want to ask you about is the statutory remit of the Fair Trading Commission. You would agree with me that anti-monopolistic measures in our marketplace is a laudable effort. You would agree with me with that, right, as a baseline proposition?
Certainly.
You would also agree with me that mature and advanced economies have all, at some point in time, enacted anti-competitive behavior legislation.
Over 130.
Right. So it first started with the antitrust legislation in the US in the 1930s. You would agree with me with that?
A little before that, but the Sherman Act was from...
Right. And it's one of the famous pieces of legislation which was used to take apart these monopolistic oil concerns and banking concerns in the US.
Standard Oil initially, yes.
Right. You would also agree with me that the European Commission has a very robust anti-competitive market supervisory authority.
It does.
You will also agree with me that the UK authorities also has it.
Yes.
Right. And you will also agree with me that this Fair Trading Act comprises of 53 sections, and together with a schedule of regulations, provides some measure of a regulatory framework within which the Fair Trading Commission operates. You agree with me?
A very broad framework, but yes.
Well, yes, broad and specific as well, but we'll get to the provisions of it, because I want to be very frontal and make my position plain with you.
Sure.
I am somewhat concerned about the tenor of the exchange of letters that took place once, and if I could borrow a word from my colleague, Senator Atz, I am deeply troubled by the lethargy. 9 months have gone by after you receive letters, and you make a requisition. But we'll get to that. I'm deeply concerned and troubled by that. But what I want to do is take you to the provisions of your Fair Trading Act on your jurisdictional ambit. Okay? So the jurisdiction of the Commission is established by Section 4. The Commission is established by Section 4. You agree with me?
Yes.
Section 5 sets out the functions of the Commission. Okay? And Section 5 says the functions of the Commission are to A, carry out subject to Section 9. So let's go to Section 9 to see what your limiting powers are. We'll get to that because they give you some wide powers there. Section 9, on its own initiative. What do you understand by the meaning of that word in the statute? On its own initiative.
Well, it means the Fair Trading Commission can on its own investigate allegations of anti-competitive activity.
So acting ex proprio motu, on its own, in protection of the public interest. You would agree with me, would you not?
Yes, yes.
That anti-competitive behavior is in a marketplace is one of the highest ideals of the public interest that needs to be protected. Would you not agree with me with that?
I will, yes.
Right. So this is what your statutory remit says. It says, carry out, subject to Section 9, on its own initiative or the request of any interested person, such investigations in relation to the conduct of business, as will enable it to determine whether any enterprise is engaging in business practices in contravention of this Act and the extent of the practices. And 2, other investigations as may be requested by any interested person or as it may consider necessary or desirable in connection with the matters falling within the provisions of this Act. So would you not agree with me that there is no statutory requirement for any formal complaint to be made?
There is none, but...
Stop right there.
Yes.
I'm sorry if I sound somewhat peeved at this, but I am, if I am to be quite frank with you. Because here it is, in a matter of the highest national importance. You receive a letter on 6th of September 2024. You respond 1 week later, on the 13th of September 2024. And instead of assuming your vast and extensive statutory authority, which you are provided with here, you seek to shift the onus on the complainant? How is that even possibly tenable, given your wide statutory remit?
Okay.
I want you to answer what you understand by a statutory remit, first of all.
Well, we understand what our statutory remit is, but we also we have to recognize the resource limitations that the Commission faces.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Narayan Singh?
And we need to investigate, we need an alignment. It's an ecosystem, so to speak, where we need the cooperation of the entities as well.
All right. You need the cooperation of which entities?
The entities that have concerns.
Okay.
So,
fine. Hold on.
Yes.
This is a private business association, right? How are they possibly going to requisition documents privately held by private entities who are engaging in anti-monopolistic behavior, in anti-competitive behavior? How? Could you explain that to me and the members of this committee? When you seek to shift the onus on the association, how, and I will show you where you have the power to do it, by relatively simple means. Okay? So let's not go there, Mr. Narayan Singh. When you got this letter, you then responded 1 week later, and this letter is signed by you.
Yes.
It's not signed by some underling in your office. You respond after, and then you proceed to give them a shopping list of 8 items. And this is what you say at item 4. Information about the business enterprise or individuals involved in the conduct, including their contact information, were known. What exactly you meant by information about business enterprises or individuals involved? What exactly you meant by that?
The entities that may be involved in the particular anti-competitive practices, if you could provide their details, if possible, we will then contact them, or we'll then do what we have to do.
Okay. Yes. So then you write a letter. I understand that. But you write a letter 9 months later, on June 17, 2025, in which you say you've come to the preliminary review. In light of these developments, we wish to advise there may be sufficient grounds. What you meant by sufficient grounds?
Okay. So, Chair, if I may, we actually wrote.
First of all, let me ask you something.
But no, you're giving 9 months. We wrote in December as well. So it wasn't that we wasn't any slumber for 9 months.
So where's the December letter?
Well, we can provide. I don't know if it was. It was sent on December 12, 2024.
Right. And what did you say in that December letter?
Well, there would have been certain statements in a town hall by Mr. Suchet, where he had indicated that they would have submitted things about anti-competitive practices. And what we would have advised when we wrote, of course, we were interacting with the lawyer as well, Mr. Young, and what we would have indicated that in terms of the concerns that had been raised in December, none had been received. And then we notified them again that again we would have shared the information, again the same, I guess the compendium of information that you have raised concern about. So
So this is what is reported in an article by the journalist Paula Lindo, and it is reported in the Newsday of Monday, 16 December 2024. This is what you say to the journalist. The Fair Trading Commission has said it will be examining recent concerns about competition and regulatory practices in the pharmaceutical sector that have been expressed in the public domain.
So,
hold on. He then goes on to say, in a release on December 13th, the Commission said the concerns had raised critical issues which may require further examination. Right? What I want to know, having assured the public of that through a press release, and having assured the public of that through your conversations and your letters, what exactly did you do except write 3 letters to the association?
We would have met with the Ministry of Health.
All right, hold on. You would have met with them. When was that meeting?
That would have been in December as well.
Right.
December
and where are the minutes of that meeting? Who was present?
Mr. Ali was present.
Where's the report of that meeting? Why was that not disclosed to this committee?
Well, because of the questions that were asked, we were answering the questions, but we actually
So,
met.
all right, so let's take it at your highest.
Yes.
Assuming but not admitting you did something there. You met with the ministry. What else did you do?
We met with the pharmaceutical board, pharmacy board.
Okay. And
Not
we'll
the
ask them
pharmacy
out.
retail board, but the pharmacy board.
Right. And what else did you do?
We also, we would have, as well, we would have, we would have been having, our internal.
All right, you had your internal. Where are the emails? Where are the exchange of electronic communication with the internals? How did you do that? Electronic internal meetings. Where are the minutes of those meetings?
But these were internal meetings.
Yes.
With
So what?
staff and everything.
You don't take minutes. There's no record of internal meetings.
Internally, in terms of the board and everything, we could share those minutes.
Okay. So did you report this matter to the then existing board?
We were aware of concerns that the pharmacy board had raised.
Mr. Narayan Singh, I'm asking you a simple
yes,
question.
Our releases would not have been done without the board having oversight.
So the board knew of this. The board authorized the release.
Yes.
The board authorized you telling the public and authorized you telling the association that you had come to the preliminary review that there was a prima facie case for anti-competitive behavior in the pharmaceutical industry.
But that was after. That was in June after. That was when we didn't have a board. We actually, it's true.
So, all right, you didn't have a board. So
Yes.
who made that decision?
I would have made that decision because
Acting on what evidence?
Based on documents that we would have finally received
From whom?
From Mr. Suchit and his team.
Right, so then, in order to come to, so you did receive some documents.
Subsequently, in May, June.
Right, so
Yes.
in May, June, so when you wrote that letter in June, on June 17th or whatever the letter is, right? This letter, June 17th. When you told, in light of these developments, we wish to advise. So here you were putting yourself in the position of advisor in your statutory remit, fulfilling. There may be sufficient grounds. Now you're a lawyer. You understand the meaning of the word prima facie case, right? When you say sufficient grounds, it must mean that from your examination of the evidence and the documents, you found that, yes, there was a basis to investigate. Don't you agree with me?
Based on information we received in June. Not for information received
Hang on a second.
from the time you're talking about.
We are getting there. We are getting there. So you have come to this conclusion in the 4th paragraph of your letter. Okay, forgive me for writing upon it. That there are sufficient grounds. But then you shift the onus and you send the laundry list again. The shopping list, I should say. Right. So if we to take your statutory duties again, right? So we go to 5(1)(b). advise the minister on such matters relating to the operation of this act and as it thinks fit or may be requested by the minister. So that doesn't apply here. But then we go to 5C, and 5C says, investigate on its own initiative or at the request of any person adversely affected and take such action as it considers necessary with respect to the abuse of a monopoly power by any enterprise. Having come to that conclusion in June, what action have you taken on your own initiative?
Well, we cannot take action on our own.
Why?
We don't have a board. We cannot do
But
a formal
Mr. Narayan
investigation.
Singh, Mr.
We
Narayan
cannot make a formal investigation based without a board, because remember, the same sections you
Narayan
referred
Singh,
to.
where in this act does it say that your power as executive director is circumscribed by the board? Don't you have a power as executive director to act independently of the board? Nothing in this act circumscribes your power by a board.
Well, we were acting not.
We're going to go through this act, Mr. Narayan Singh. I'm sorry if I appear as though I am being somewhat insistent on it, but I think this is a matter that is in the public interest. Right? So you agree with me that the Commission has a power to act on its own initiative, to investigate on its own initiative. You agree with me?
It does.
Right. And then it goes in 5.2 to say, it shall be the duty of the Commission to make available, one, to persons engaged in business general information with respect to their rights and obligations under this Act. Right? And then it goes on to say other things and cooperate and all of that, right? Then it says at 6, for the purpose of discharging its functions under Section 5, the Commission may make an application to the court for the determination of a contravention of this Act. But then 7 gives you a wide power. You agree with me?
It does.
Yes. It says, for the benefit of the public, in pursuance of its functions under 5.1a, the Commission may investigate the affairs of a business enterprise. A, if after the consideration of a complaint from any person that the business enterprise is acting in contravention of this Act, the Commission is of the opinion that it is necessary that the affairs of such an enterprise should be investigated, right? So that's where you actually have to have a complaint. B, on its own initiative, having regard to the facts available to it, it is of the opinion that the business enterprise is acting in contravention of the Act. Wouldn't you agree with me that your letter of June 17, 2025, where you told the association there was sufficient facts for them to formally lodge a complaint, satisfies this test?
Well, that's why we were waiting for the complaint, but we.
Well, no,
but Chair,
I accept that.
But we had a meeting after, and I think, if I may, I think there's been, with us and the Pharmacy Retail Board, and there has been some sort of miscommunication.
Now, hold on.
And if I could explain.
There are two bases on which you can exercise your jurisdiction. You have your jurisdiction kicks in when a complaint is made. This is not a case of a complaint. We know that. We accept that. This is a case where you know of facts which have been brought to your attention. You just admitted to me that you were provided with documents. Then you write a letter on June 17th saying that you are satisfied that sufficient grounds. Now, Mr. Narayan Singh, in law, sufficient grounds carries a certain connotation. You're a very experienced lawyer. But yet you do not avail yourself of the power, the express power given to you in Section 7 of your Enabling Act to investigate on your own initiative. And this is what it says, on its own initiative, having regard to facts available to it, it is of the opinion that the business enterprise is acting in contravention of this act. Now, plainly, this letter satisfies this test. Wouldn't you agree with me?
Well, the letters, yes, it does.
Yeah, so let's move on.
Mhm.
The Commission, 7.2, again, wide powers given to you. The Commission shall serve on all relevant parties written notice of its intention to initiate an investigation under this Act in the form prescribed in the schedule. That, of course, is paying homage to your duty to be fair, and you give notice, okay? So let's go to Section 8 to see the investigatory powers so that the public understands what is at stake here and the powers available to the Fair Trade Commission. And this is what it says. The side note to the legislation says, powers of the Commission with regard to investigation. It says, for the purpose of conducting any investigation with regard to the discharge of its function under this Act, the Commission shall, subject to subsection 2, have the power to A, require the production of documents for examination. So the shopping list, which you gave to the association, you simply could have written to any company and asked for it pursuant to Section 8. Wouldn't you agree with me?
Well, if we had to actually know which, were the ones who have a complaint has been lodged against, yes.
No,
Yes.
Mr. Narayan Singh, you're going back to the complaint jurisdiction.
Yes.
There are two types of jurisdiction you have.
Mhm.
You have a jurisdiction where a complaint has been made, and you also have a jurisdiction acting on your own initiative. You have said,
Chair, the issue that has arisen has been the fact that there's been a lot of trepidation with us acting without a board. And all of this has happened, or we have not had a board since May of this year. So for one to go and act for a person like me without the authorization of a board, one has to be very careful to do that and to launch an investigation. We have never launched an investigation of this nature before.
let me ask you something.
There's a lot of other things, Chair, if I may. There's a lot of things that are also awaiting approval, like merger applications and things like that. So we have not been reviewing officially a merger, but yet we will be launching an investigation. You can't have it both ways. That has been our interpretation without a board. So I would need to get the formal. We have been gathering. Mr. Suchet would have submitted a very comprehensive document. Subsequently, this was like a document if we had received this document in June and December last year, it could have been a way to launch what we needed to launch.
Yes, but you had not a complaint.
No, but the correspondence didn't indicate that, Chair.
You had letters, correspondence indicating that the substance of all of this to you.
No, Chair.
Since the 6th of September.
If I may, Chair, with all due respect, no. The letters indicated that they were gathering data and they would submit it to us.
All right, so
on
the 7th of September, you wrote back and you sent a shopping list of documents to them, right?
To guide the process, yes.
To guide the process. As a responsible regulator, didn't that set off alarm bells in your mind to say, well, look, there might be something here. Let's trigger the initiative jurisdiction?
It triggered us engaging with Ministry of Health, Pharmacy Board, and other regulators. That is what it initiated, because we were very concerned during that period. We had a lot of work with that pharmacy sector.
Pursuant to that, did you ever see it fit to summon anybody, requisition any document, summon anyone pursuant to Section 8?
No, we didn't. Because us doing that would have indicated us initiating something formally. So we were doing evidence gathering before doing anything formally.
All right, you were doing evidence gathering. Short of writing letters and meeting with the Ministry of Health, what other evidence gathering exercise did you engage in?
We would have did notices.
All right, fine. Notices to
Inviting
whom?
persons to the public, if there's concern, to raise it and to bring it to our attention.
Were those notices published?
We would have on the websites and on our websites and things like that, yes.
Were they published any other place other than the Commission's website? The website is not a place the public visits frequently.
We do social media. We also share it with the media, but it's up to the media if they want to, because we're not paying for it. So it's up to the media if they want to run a story on it. Let's put it that way.
Okay. I'm being prevailed upon, Mr. Narayan Singh, but this is a matter that I want to return to. I am going to ask you here formally that I want to be provided with copies of everything you have done. The Fair Trade Commission has undertaken in a compendious manner, including the minutes of the meeting with the ministry, including every single step that has been taken with regard to this. The board minutes which you alluded to, I would like those. I would like whatever internal email, whatever internal tasks were assigned to members of the commission, staff at the commission, I should like to be provided with all of those. So I quite understand that my colleagues have been here all morning, and I'm being asked if this is the appropriate time to adjourn this session, which will give everyone the time to come back. There is going to be supplemental requisition of documents having regard to what has happened today. Permanent Secretary Ali and Mr. Ali, we are going to send out further requisition for documents for you. Mr. Dukaran from the Exim Bank, following up on my questions of double dipping, triple dipping, and quadruple dipping, I would follow up on that as well. And Mr. Comptroller, I would expect that if Exim Bank transfers 100 million over 5 years to suppliers abroad, that the bills of lading, the C75, C82 forms, will all be available to us. And it's a exercise in arithmetic. 100 million from Exim Bank must add up to 100 million at the Comptroller's office, right? Yes. You would agree with me, it's a simple arithmetic exercise. Yes, sir. So you will get my requisition. So at this point in time, subject to anybody else's, we would take the adjournment and we return on, the proposed date to return is January 26th, subject to the convenience of all my colleagues and all of you. Yeah. So I will now say that this meeting is now adjourned to January 26th, and I want to thank everyone for coming, attending here, and being as helpful as you possibly can. I thank all of you. This meeting now stands adjourned to January 26th. Huh?